faces lawmakers.
Former Agriculture Undersecretary Leocadio Sebastian defends his order to import 300,000 metric tons of sugar after Malacanang called his move illegal. Facing members of a joint House panel, Sebastian said sugar supply is running low based on government data. He said there's a supply shortage of over 500,000 metric tons of sugar yearly. Sebastian signed Sugar Importation Order Number 4 without President Bongbong Marcos's approval. Marcos should have given the go signal for importation as the concurrent Agriculture Secretary and Chair of the Sugar Regulatory Board.
I signed the document based on the data presented to me, based on the data presented by the Sugar Regulatory Administration. There is a clear indication of the rapidly diminishing supply of sugar. Current supply is projected to run out in August 2022, this month, and end of crop year 2021-2022.
Sebastian, however, admitted his order was against the administration's plan. He resigned last week as Malacanang announced an investigation on the matter.
I immediately resigned when I knew the President disapproved my action.
The Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura or SINAG says the sugar supply needed by the country is not as big as what Sebastian claimed. SINAG specifies nearly 170,000 metric tons of sugar have been imported this year, tripling the imported volume in 2021. The group is also questioning why Sebastian didn't inform Marcos about the importation order when they actually met at the palace last week.
Nalaman din namin ang shortfall lang is around 100,000 metric tons. Bakit nag-issue kaagad ang SRA approval na 300,000 metric tons? Bakit hindi in-inform ang presidente natin na pumirma siya in behalf of the president? Sa tingin namin may tinatago and dapat malaman natin.
On his vlog, Marcos announced his plan to import sugar by October. But the president says the volume will not exceed 150,000 metric tons or half of what regulators wanted to import.
Habang ang production pa natin ay inaayos pa natin, napipilitan tayo mag-import, ngunit tiyakin natin na yung importation hindi naman sobra. Hindi sobra-sobra doon sa pangangailangan. At meron namang supply dito sa Pilipinas.
Some lawmakers now urge Sugar Regulatory Administration officials who signed the importation order to resign out of delicadeza. Cian Arcangel, CNN, Philippines.
The House Committees on Good Government and Public Accountability and Agriculture and Food will hold another hearing on the sugar importation mess on Thursday. Another signatory of the Sugar Regulatory Administration Board's order to import 300,000 metric tons of sugar has resigned. Roland Beltran submitted his resignation to Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez on August 4th, citing health reasons. The letter stated, quote, "This is without prejudice to any investigation that may be conducted in connection with the importation order." Beltran was among the 4 signatories of the controversial memorandum. As a representative of sugar millers, he explained his vote was conditional, subject to compliance of the provisions of laws, rules, and regulations, and the internal processes of the SRA. Meanwhile, President Marcos taps a former agriculture chief as his Undersecretary Domingo Panganiban took his oath of office on August 12th. Panganiban was a presidential assistant for agriculture for the late former President Fidel V. Ramos and was later appointed agriculture secretary during the Estrada and Arroyo administrations. The beverage industry also calling for the urgent importation of premium sugar. Rafael Alunan, who works as vice chairman and independent director of Pepsi Cola Products Philippines, in a Facebook post says the industry will run out of premium sugar needed for bottling carbonated soft drinks by September. Alunan cites 2 factors. One, he says, the continuing supply shortage of domestic premium sugar, which is separate and distinct from raw sugar, and another, the delay in the approval and documentation processes of the second batch of imports required by the beverage industry. Alunan recommending the President and the Executive Secretary to approve their request not later than Tuesday, August 16, that's tomorrow, concurrently signed by the Sugar Regulatory Board, to avoid what he calls a potentially self-inflicting disaster. Otherwise, the former senatorial candidate says bottling plants could experience production downturns and labor layoffs, and government will have lower tax collections and face diminished investor confidence. In other news, almost 20 million Filipinos live in poverty. The number swelled in 3 years from 2018 to 2021. Paige Javier gives us a deeper look.
Bad weather is not an issue for Leila Tambogon as she prepares to sell vegetables. Income from her livelihood would help her construction worker husband tide over the family needs. She's thankful for the cash aid from government, but her family of 5 needs more to survive.
Makaraos sa araw-araw na pamumuhay. Kaya dahil mahirap talagang buhay ngayon, lahat po ginagawa para makaahon.
She says the health crisis has made things difficult, but the prices of basic goods are an added burden. Numbers from the Philippine Statistics Authority show more Filipinos joined the ranks of those living in poverty in 2021 from 2018. The percentages rose from 16.7% to 18.1%, or nearly 20 million people last year from over 17 million 3 years ago. Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Arsenio Balisacan blames the lingering health crisis.
Restrictions on mobility and low earning capacity of poor households due to limited access to regular and productive jobs made the lives of Filipinos difficult.
Economic managers aim to cut the poverty rate to an ambitious 9% in 2028, the year the administration ends its term. They plan to focus on job creation. Balisacan says more Filipinos will get out of poverty as the economy reopens. But while there is optimism, the Social Welfare Department admits bringing the poverty level down is challenging. The agency earlier identified over 5 million poorest families, higher than the over 3 million identified by the statistics body.
The marching order of the secretary is to identify, to make sure that these two findings, poverty incident report will really work hand in hand to identify these poor individuals and, of course, to match them with the programs of the government.
The DSWD says it will review programs and tap other agencies to help the poor.
Hindi lang naman assistance ang pwede natin ibigay sa mga kababayan natin na ito. Kailangan natin mabigyan din sila ng opportunity sa pagtatrabaho.
The agency is also reviewing the list of conditional cash transfer program beneficiaries. But for struggling people like Leila, she hopes the cash aid will come sooner than later.
Sana yung mga bilihin bumaba na. Tapos, sana may dumating pang tulong.
Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
More stories ahead. Authorities reimpose the expanded number coding scheme in Metro Manila ahead of the reopening of classes next week. And more U.S. lawmakers arrive in Taiwan barely 2 weeks after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit. Keep it here on Newsnight.
Ito ang RPN, Radio Philippines Network, DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo, ang Radyo Ronda sa Davao.
Makita ang sakiot lumis, kini ang probinsyang Davao.
gikan sa sangguniang kabataan sa Barangay 19-B ug ang Barangay Council nga gipangunahan ni Barangay Kapitan Lorito Nicolas ug Iske Chairwoman Gisela Castillon Sumatra. Miduyog sa ika-30 City nga kadayawan sa Davao. Ang kabatanunan atong ampingan, kini sila ang pag-asa ng bayan.
Pagsibya sa mga labas nga balita, pagtuki sa mga isyu hisgutanan sa katilingban, mga impormasyon nga angay masayran sa tanan, ihatod kaninyo sa RPN DXKT Radyo Ronda Davao. Radyo Ronda Balita. Radyo Ronda Balita Morning Edition. Ihatod kaninyo sa RPN DXKT Radyo Ronda Davao. Alas 6 hangtod alas 7 sa buntag, Lunes hangtod Biyernes. Dinhi sa RPN DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo. Radyo Ronda Balita Morning Edition. Ito ang RPN Radio Philippines Network DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo, ang Radyo Ronda sa Davao.
on certain days based on the last digit of the license plates. George Quiles tells us how day one went.
MMDA personnel were early in their posts along EDSA to implement the number coding scheme. That's from 7 to 10 a.m. and from 5 to 8 p.m. One by one, authorities flag down violators. For now until Wednesday, they will just be reminded of the policy. But starting August 18, citation tickets will be issued against violators.
Ma'am, alam mo na ba na mayroong implement na ngayon yung number coding?
Apa.
So, well, bakit yung pa rin lumabas?
I know dry run lang today eh. Kakalusot pa sana.
Pwede ko kayong pakasuhan ho. I mean, you director tayo, mag-uusap tayo na maayos. Pero ito, paparahin niyo ako, tapos ihaharap niyo ako sa camera.
I'm sorry po pa, but this is also part of our public information.
A private vehicle driver was castigated after he showed a placard saying that he has a project under the Transportation Department.
Ang exempted talaga ako sa number coding. Sino po nasabi ko? Company. May mapakapakita ba kayo okay na i-exempt kayo?
While TNVS drivers are exempted from the policy, the MMDA still warned this driver after failing to show documents that will prove his claim.
Dapat naman talaga, dala mo yan eh. Pwede ka namin ikulong pag hindi mo dala. Alam mo ba yun? Yes, sir. Alam mo yun, di ba? So, napurgat lang nung naglinis ako ng sasakyan. Kaya nga, exempted kayo sa number coding. However, you need to show your provincial authority.
Violator of the number coding scheme has to pay a 300 peso fine. But if a driver is apprehended thrice in 1 year, he or she needs to undergo an MMDA-sanctioned seminar. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
Good news for motorists. Another round of pump price cuts will take effect tomorrow. Oil firms will reduce diesel prices by over a peso per liter and 10 centavos a liter for gasoline. Expect cheaper kerosene as well with a 45 centavo per liter rollback. Prices of diesel and kerosene have been going down for the past 6 weeks. This is the second consecutive week for gasoline. Some 9 out of 10 47,000 public schools are expected to hold face-to-face classes when the academic year begins next week. As part of its Oplan Balik Eskwela program, the Education Department has launched a command center that will respond to complaints and requests. DepEd also coordinating with other agencies, including the Health Department, which is educating parents, students, and teachers about the importance of COVID-19 vaccination. But for the Alliance of Concerned Teachers, preparations are lacking. Its survey this month shows 7 in 10 teachers believe government action is not enough to make sure classrooms budget for health protection and clear guidelines are enough. COVID-19 updates now. The Health Department confirming that tens of millions of vaccines have expired. What does the government plan to do to avoid more wastage? Amor Santos reports.
More than 20 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines were wasted as of August 12, according to the Department of Health. That's a wastage rate of 8.42%, meaning it doubled over the last 2 months. At an average of 500 pesos per dose, Senator Risa HONTIVEROS says it's like throwing away 10.33 billion pesos.
At this rate, Mr. Chair, by October, lalampas na tayo sa threshold ng WHO na acceptable vaccine wastage limit na 10%. So we might have accumulated vaccines faster than we could administer them.
DOH data shows the bulk of the wasted vaccines, or 19 million doses, have expired. Others were damaged by operational issues. According to Officer in Charge Maria Rosario Vergere, those that expired were from donations and procurements made by local government units and the private sector. None were from the purchases made by the national government. And the COVAX facility already committed to replace all wasted vaccines, granted that the new shots will be administered properly. Vergere adds the country will not buy any more doses this year and focus on using up the remaining stock.
We're targeting that we may be able to reach at least 50% of our eligible population for first booster by October 8. And if we are going to be able to do that, then we are on the track of consuming all of these existing vaccines that we have right now.
To date, more than 90% of Filipino adults have been vaccinated against COVID-19, but only 21% got their booster shot. The DOH attributes low booster coverage to overconfidence in the primary shots and concerns over side effects. Meanwhile, health reform advocate Tony Liachon suggests a number of waste-proof measures, including setting up a deadline for vaccination.
Siguro ho, next 6 months, yung ayaw na po, hindi na natin mapipilit. Pero at least makatarget tayo ng 50% para tayo maprotektahan.
Vergere says the DOH did not recommend lifting the state of calamity declaration, but President Bongo Marcos can do so if the country has a stronger wall of immunity. Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
With only 1 week to go, an infectious diseases expert seeks to ensure the safe reopening of classes by pushing for mandatory vaccination in schools across the country. Catch the full interview of Dr. Ron Jean Solante on the CNN Philippines special presentation, COVID-19, Addressing the Educational Crisis. That's tonight at 8 p.m., hosted by our senior anchor, Pinky Webb and Paolo Abrera. Over in Taiwan, another U.S. congressional delegation has arrived to reaffirm, quote, U.S.-Taiwan relations. The visit comes just days after China held military drills around the island in apparent opposition to U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's Taipei trip. Our Tisa Nadal reports from Beijing.
China will take resolute countermeasures to defend its territory and sovereignty following the visit of U.S. lawmakers in Taiwan. Beijing sees this as a provocative move on the part of the U.S. and an interference in the internal affairs of other countries. The Taiwan Foreign Ministry has welcomed the second high-level group from the U.S. on Sunday, led by U.S. Senator Ed Markey and 4 House lawmakers. The delegation will meet with senior Taiwan leaders to discuss the future of U.S.-Taiwan relations, including regional security, in their 2-day visit. But China firmly opposes this visit to Taiwan and any form of official relations between the two. Chinese embassy spokesperson in Washington, Liu Pengyu, says the U.S. Congress should act in accordance to its One China policy. Beijing adds that the U.S. does not want to see stability in the Taiwan Strait, and somehow its move is further stirring up confrontation in the area. For his part, Philippine Ambassador to the United States Jose Manuel Romualdez hopes that U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping will hold more dialogues to resolve the increasing tension in Taiwan.
There is that push and pull going on between the United States and China, and we're the ASEAN community. All the ASEAN members, all 10, have asked that both China and the United States bring down the tension, because obviously we're all going to get affected by whatever happens there.
Over the weekend, the U.S. reiterates that they are committed to the One China policy and they do not support Taiwan independence. Washington also calls for peaceful resolution in the Taiwan Strait. It remains to be seen on what kind of countermeasures China will carry out in the coming days. But recently, Beijing launches a series of military drills around Taiwan Island in what was a showcase of its combat capabilities. Tristan Udalo, CNN Philippines, Beijing, China.
Up ahead, the Cine Malaya Film Festival ends with a new list of winners, and Aaron Black lifts Meralco to force Game 7 in the Philippine Cup semifinals, while TNT punches its ticket to the championship round. You're watching CNN Philippines.
Kada Agosto, Ibo kaayo, kay dunay piyesta, diri sa amo, sayaw sa dalan.
Ang Barangay Council sa Barangay Komunal sa ikaduhang distrito ng siyudad sa Davao, pinaagi ni Barangay Kapitan Mark Galvis, miduyog sa ika-37 nga kasaulugan sa Kadayawan sa siyudad sa Davao. Madayaw, Davao!
Ang kinabuhi sa tao, tagsalang ta, mabuhi aning kalibutan na. So kung doon na may mga oportunidad kumaayo, grab this opportunity, avail this opportunity, because it might not come and happen it again. So sa tanano, ang oportunidad, ibalik na ko, tagsalang, so i-grab din yung opportunity.
Ibay ng bayan, para sa Davao, sama payama, magtipon-tipon, sa Kadayawan, Kadayawan.
Mga balita ug impormasyon nga kinahanglang masayran. Ipahibalo kaninyo aron katawhan mahimong alerto. Mga nag-unang balita sa Davao Region ug ingon man sa kinatibuk-ang mga rehiyon sa Mindanao. Kauban ang gisaligang mga personalidad sa paghatod sa mga balita. Mia Escovilla, Randy Kilos ug mga alertong news reporters. Alerto Mindanao! Alerto Mindanao! Alas 12 sa udto hangtod alauna sa hapon, Lunes hangtod Biyernes sa 98.7 Home Radio Davao ug sa RPN DXKT 1071 AM Radyo Ronda Davao. Kung kita nahibalo, ikaw ug ako, alerto! Ito ang RPN Radio Philippines Network DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo, ang Radyo Ronda sa Davao.
Welcome back. Sports news now. The TNT Tropang Giga are heading back to the PBA Philippine Cup Finals to defend their title. Tropang Giga beat the Magnolia Hotshots in Game 6 of the semis at the Araneta Coliseum in Quezon City on Sunday, 87-74. TNT's Jason Castro sizzled with a game-high 26 points for the championship round. Jason told CNN Philippines Sports Desk what TNT is keeping an eye out for with the other possible finalists, San Miguel or Meralco.
Actually, both teams naman they present different problem, especially yun nga. San Miguel kasi ang dami nilang guards si Junmar. So, Meralco naman, almost same lang din yung mga guards nila. Mga pesky defender na at the same time. Yun nga, ang galing nila mga pumost up. Siguro, for us to win, yun nga, yung maging focus namin is yung team namin kung paano namin makapag-execute. At the same time, yung defense namin, kasi doon kami din nananalo eh.
And the semi-finals continue for Meralco and San Miguel after the both stunned the Beermen in Game 6, 96-92. Meralco was down by 10 points in the last 4 minutes, but Aaron Black sparked Meralco's endgame takeover. AB scored the Bolts' last 11 points. Game 7 happens Wednesday, 6 p.m. Over the Premier Volleyball League, the Creamline Cool Smashers emerged victorious again, sweeping King Whale Taipei for the Invitational Conference crown on Sunday at the Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay City. The Cool Smashers avenged their only loss of the semis against the lone foreign squad in the event. And Filipino-American NBA player Jalen Green made his way to his mother's home province, Ilocos Sur, for the first time. Giving back was part of his agenda as he shared his talents with young athletes through a short basketball clinic at the Kawayan Community Center. Green left the country yesterday. More Pinoy talent, but this time in cinema. The top honor at this year's Cinemalaya Independent Film Festival went to The Baseball Player. The Best Film awardee tells the story of a 70-year-old Moro soldier who pursues his dream despite an all-out war in his hometown. It also won Best Actor, Best Screenplay, and Best Editing. Maan Asuncion Dagnyalan's Blue Room was another big winner, bagging 5 awards. These include Best Director and the Special Jury Prize. The movie is about an indie band arrested for drug possession who must decide between their principles or their freedom. K-pop fans are raving on social media as Blackpink releases a new teaser for their next single, Pink Venom. Rosé, Lisa, Jisoo, and Jennie are dropping their album Born Pink this September. Take a look at the teaser for the pre-release single. Blackpink's world tour begins this October with a stop in Manila set for March 25 next year. And that is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Hontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.